Today I'm going to talk to you about this tool here. This is a saw board, or the other name for it is a bench hook. And this has two purposes. Firstly, when you're cutting, you can put the saw board in the vise, tighten it up, and if you're cutting a piece of wood using a saw, this gives you something to clamp the material against, so that when you're cutting, the material isn't rattling around. The other purpose for the saw board is to prevent damage to the desk. I'm sure you'll appreciate it's much cheaper to buy one of these than it is to buy one of these. If you're right-handed, the saw board goes straight into the vise and you can quite happily cut away. If you're left-handed, some of the saw boards are set up for left-handed people, so there's a gap at this end as well as that end, so you can hold the saw in your left hand and clamp the wood against the bench hook or the saw board and quite happily cut. If there isn't a check at this end, what you can do is put this tool post up, and underneath there's a wee screw, a wee nut that holds it in place. You will find the bench stop underneath the bench, and if you just push that up to the height that's required and then tighten the wing nut, that gives you something to push the bench hook or the saw board against. You can then use a scrap bit of wood, and your teacher will give you the material that you need so that you can clamp the saw board against these scrap bits of wood, tighten it up, and then you can saw away. It doesn't show very well on this side, but if I turn it round, you'll see there's no gap at this end, and that means when I'm cutting down onto a solid piece of material. I've got support underneath this piece, so that when I go through the material, the saw doesn't drop and bounce off the bench. Saw board, the other name being a bench hook.